Radio, a podcast produced by Winding Trails Media for writers by writers.
Writers, agents, and publishers, for the first time since the Gutenberg Press, find themselves lost in a maze of mystery as technology alters the shape of the publishing industry. Searching for Answers is a group of writers throwing pop culture, writing, and publishing into a crucible of clarity, passion, and humor. This group is the Write Pack.
Welcome back to Write Pack Radio. This is your host and producer, David Allen Lucas, author of Crazy Things and recovering from my heroic, epic duel with my fellow swordsman, Brad, who killed me during the duel.
Exactly.
Oh. Well,
No,
you look very good for being a dead
Thank
man.
you.
He does. Well, technically, I only cut off his leg.
Oh, that's just a flesh wound.
I stabbed him
That's a
through the hip
flesh
with a
wound.
lightsaber.
When was
Yeah.
this?
This was at the
Yesterday.
Missouri Romance Writers Association's
Moira!
Moira. We talked there. This, as those who know, we record in the future, so we're recording.
We recorded in the past.
We record in the past for the future, so this is a couple weeks ago from the time this gets aired.
Oh, future is
And
past.
we actually were able to
Future
do a more
scenes of the
advanced
past.
writing the fight scene class, which was
Yep.
really great.
Yeah, it turned out really great.
I'm currently working on a couple projects, including one about writing using knives for self-defense. And I will be, last I checked, should be at the All Right conference for young writers at
Yeah,
Webster.
Webster. Yeah, we should be doing that.
Sometime in March. I'd have to check the dates.
We'll be sword fighting yet again.
Right. I have also by now launched the video log, which I'm hoping will be daily, on Ghost Owl Samurai, being a writer and following the code of the Bushido. And with that, I turn over to my lovely co-host.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Kayembe. I write paranormal romance under the pen name Kaseka and Vita, and under my name, my story, You Will Always Have Family, a triptych, will be out in March in Nightmare Magazine.
Yay!
Yay! And also with us today is...
My name is Jennifer Stolzer. I'm a children's book author and illustrator. My premier fantasy novel will be out in March. I'm looking at maybe the second weekend of March for my soft boot on the internet. So all you people who don't live in St. Louis, look for it then. Threadcaster.com. And those who do live in St. Louis, you can join me at Main Street Books in St. Charles for my launch party on March the 25th. That's a Saturday from 2 to 5.
Woohoo!
Yes. Yeah. Also with us.
Yes, your dueling sparring partner, Brad R. Cook, author of steampunk historical fantasies that are Iron Horseman, Iron Zulu, and Iron Lotus. Do check them out. Iron Lotus just dropped back in November, so it is out and fresh and loving the world that is there. But yes, check out my short stories too. I'll have more here in just a bit. And then get prepared because this year is going to be the year of the Iron Chronicles, and I'm just going to go crazy with it, and we're going to do all kinds of fun stuff. So
You got me in.
check it out at bradrcook.com, and a big thanks out to all the wonderful romance writers at Mora for having David and I.
Yes, and I want to say too, real fast before I go to the next person, is a special shout out to Jeannie Lynn and Chantel Madison, who gave me the idea. Actually, I've kind of played with it, but they've confirmed this idea, I should say. I'm going to start doing kind of a write the fight scene doctor for editing of books. I'm not going to edit people's books, but if you have a fight scene that you're not sure if it really comes across, that I will edit.
So are you going to have a copay for this? Or?
Yes, I will be. I like the idea of copay.
It's a copay.
If you have writing insurance.
You are a doctor, so I had
There
to
you go.
ask what your office fee was.
I like that. Okay,
Maybe
moving
he doesn't
on.
take insurance. It's all just out of writer's
Oh, that's
pocket.
right. It's black market.
Yeah.
Out of pocket.
You're from Tijuana.
There you go. I'm from across the Canadian border. Anyway, go ahead.
My name is Chanel Etienne, and I write sci-fi and fantasy.
And I'm Melanie Lucas. I am getting closer to being back to actually writing.
We believe in you.
Yeah, science fiction and fantasy. I've been thinking a whole lot about the fantasy novel I've been working on. So since I haven't found the rough draft of the sci-fi novel I have, I guess I'm going to go back to the one I actually have a computer thing of. And it's not lost forever. It's just in my other place somewhere.
It's caught being between, still merging houses together. So
Yeah.
She explained that because my face is
She was-
horror struck. That
Yeah.
she. Oh my gosh. Okay, go on.
It's not permanently lost, don't worry.
Okay.
Also with us,
Venora Amos. I write Victorian whodunits like Jack the Ripper in St. Louis and Mayhem at Buffalo Bill's Wild West. And I'm president of the new streamlined Sisters in Crime.
Ooh.
Check it out at sistersinCrimeSTL.org.
That sounds
Yes.
sneaky. Murderous.
I'm
stick
I
back
am
from
George
that.
Soroy. I'm the vice president of the Missouri Writers Guild. Looking forward to seeing you all at the Missouri Writers Guild annual conference, May 5th through the 7th at the Holiday Inn Executive Center in Columbia, Missouri. It's going to be a great weekend. Looking forward to seeing you there. I also write science fiction for the young adult reader. Both Excelsior and its sequel, Ever Upward, Part 2 of the Excelsior Journey, will be launched by Aloris Publishing on May 1st and June 1st. The 5-part serial from Parts Unknown will be relaunched in the near future. No specific date yet, but keep an ear out for that. But that is going to be released under my own banner sometime in the near future.
Excellent. And while with that was said, if you missed the May conference in June 16th through 18th in St. Louis at the Renaissance Hotel, is Gateway Con. Gateway Conference for writers and a Gateway Convention for readers. The Writers Conference is going to be very interesting. It's both aimed at traditional published as well as indie published. And then there's Reader Convention, which will be free to all readers. Check out for more information on stlwritersguild.org and look for Gateway Con.
And you could go to both.
You could go to both,
Please go to
most
both.
certainly.
In fact, please
We
do.
encourage you
Yes.
to.
Yes.
You will have different things at different places.
Right. So, let us begin. Today we're going to talk about something. It's going to sound innocuous at first, but it's extremely important. And if you hear jingling, that's going on because of handling
Don't
stuff.
lampshade it. Just let it happen.
Okay, anyway. The innocuous thing is open mics and reading aloud. Now, that doesn't sound like much. I've gone to lots of book signings, I'm sure everybody else around here has, and where the authors have had a chance to read passages from their writing. And sometimes those authors don't read them quite so well. A lot of times that's because they don't get practice. And they don't know how. They don't know A, they should practice, and B, they don't have places to practice.
There's also a big difference between reading in your head and then reading aloud.
Very much so. So let's talk about why open mics and reading aloud is important. Go ahead, please, Kathleen.
But wait, what is an open mic?
But wait, are open mics open to all open people?
Hard.
Okay. Open mics. Open mics are usually events in or around your city where people are allowed to come up and demonstrate their talent as far as what that open mic is for. Now, I'm being very careful here with what I'm saying because there's different kinds of open mics. One open mic is for music. I'm not talking about you guys. Open mics for poetry, that's great, but all they want is poems.
Just writing.
Slam.
Poetry
Yes.
slams or just open mics for poetry. If you are not a poet, or if poetry is not the only thing you write, you really are looking for the third type, which is open mics for those who do poetry and prose.
Shout out to St. Louis Writers Guild's open mic the second Tuesday of every month.
Where is it, Brad?
Kirkwood train station.
Kirkwood
Amtrak station.
Yes.
Let's be clear.
Yes, there's a lot of
Because
train
there's a
stations. in
stupid
Kirkwood.
restaurant
We're
that has the
writers.
other
We
name.
need specific details, Brian.
Yes. So the Kirkwood Amtrak station, second Tuesday, 7 to 9 p.m.
Free to come
completely
read
free.
or listen,
And they do 5 minutes for poetry and 7 minutes for prose.
no matter how
Exactly.
much you argue.
And if you're looking at
Exactly.
this in the distant future, please just check our website because we are going to have to move temporarily as they renovate the train station. So anyway, getting back to what I'm saying. So open. So that's the type. Those are 3 types of open mics. They're
3
out
of the
there.
many kinds of open.
With
And
some,
there are more. but-
I think aren't some open mics you have to pay like a nominal amount?
Some you do,
Yes.
some you have to pay just to listen to.
Usually the payment is going to help rent the venue.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Yes.
Like when you go to a bar and they have a $2 fee at the door. You
Yeah.
buy that in beer or you have to pay it,
Right.
that kind of thing.
So, but why are open mics important?
Well,
Do you like community?
I was going to say, it gets writers out of their rooms.
it does.
But I'm an introvert. I hate community.
Well,
I'm
don't
being honest
hate
with that part,
community.
but anyone.
Introverts don't hate community. They're just...
we like it in certain circumstances.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Less
it's
community.
low doses.
Yes, we don't like to. Okay, we don't like being power strips for the extroverts to plug into us.
Golly,
But,
extrovert hate.
But
I'm on the high six.
oh goodness! But the St. Louis Writers Guild open mic was actually the first open mic I had ever been to, and being an introvert myself, getting up in front of a group of people was something I had last done in school. So I was like, I have this story of mine that I want to read that's short, and I'm scared to do it, so I'm doing it because I don't like being scared of stuff. So I got up in front of everybody, and my legs were shaking. And I probably read too fast because that's a common thing that people do. They read
Yes.
too fast.
Uh-huh.
And my hands, I think, were shaking. I had my computer probably. Although usually people at that open mic had brought printed off sheets of paper that they were reading from. I was the kid that had a computer, and like Jen was the first person I saw at the St. Louis Writers Guild to use her phone to read off her story.
Really? I didn't know I had that
Yes,
distinction.
you were the first one that I saw, and I was going for a while before you started coming. So
Well, you're the reason I came. The open mic was my first Writers Guild event. You had me come to it.
What was fun is I
Sorry,
remember
kiddo.
this completely, and she's describing it correctly. She was nervous up there.
But I read, and after I finished reading and everybody clapped, like, I know that that's how it works. You read, people clap, you go sit down. But I felt so empowered that after the open mic ended, I went with a friend and just, no, that was the second time when I got someone to read. After that, I felt so empowered, though, and I started writing when I got home because I was just so excited and full of all this energy that the open mic had given me. That whole experience was really freeing. And to read my work to other people and have them applaud, and then afterwards some said they liked it, I was like, wow, writers are really nice.
And I'm going to just caveat, just dovetail and then come over here to Brad real quick. But yeah, you had the applause, and I had Linda O'Connell, who is also kind of a famous author of
We're very proud
essays.
of Linda.
Yeah, we love Linda. I love her to death. But she's like, she turns to me and tells me, your stories give me nightmares. Thank you! I'm writing a horror story. Thank you! So, Brad, your turn.
Yes. So, there are a lot of social reasons to get out, and just like you said, there's a lot of internal reasons. But for me, an open mic is two things. One, it is a chance to test new material, I guess is the best way of putting it. Like a comic. So I get the ability to stand up there and I'm reading, and as I'm reading, it's my work, I've written this. Usually that is a critique in of itself, just because as I go through it, I'm going to find errors. Reading aloud is a wonderful, wonderful way of finding errors in your books, because you'll read right into them, and then you'll spot them and circle them and go back and fix them or whatever. But open mics kind of give you this ability to stand up there and test your material out. You get to say it. I am never one who likes the people who stand up there and say, can I get a critique? No.
That's for critique groups. That was
Yeah.
a previous episode.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I would be happy to come up afterwards and tell you that I thought it was great or something like that, but I'm certainly not going to stand there and tell while you're standing there at the mic and give you a 5-minute thing after you just read for 7 minutes or something like that. So don't expect that. But it is a great way to hear your voice, hear the voice of what you've written, and then see any mistakes.
I just want to say, if you go to open mic, there is maybe in your future that one guy who definitely wants to critique you whether or not you've asked for it.
This is true too.
Just say no. Having been on the receiving end of that guy, I was like, that's not what this is for. So remember that you have the right to say no, especially if you're like me and new pieces are like babies and they're not cleaned off yet.
And that guy is rarely right. I'm just gonna say.
Because he knows the guy that he's talking about.
Actually, a lot of us in this room do. I'm just cringing.
But like that guy is far outside the norm. So I wanted you guys to know that it might happen, but it is very rare that that person exists in an open mic setting. So.
If you're going to an open mic that has a critique portion in it, they should probably tell you that.
Yes.
You're going to a joint critique group, which are things that exist. Where you read your piece and everyone goes around and talks about them. But an open mic, the whole point, like open mic, the microphone is open to anyone, and it's supposed to be more of an exhibition and not a workshop.
Right.
Exactly.
We've got a couple people with their hands up, but I do want to come back to exactly what you're talking about and talk about what not to expect and what should not happen. And then, but I want to hear from first George, Jen, and then Chanel.
Yeah, Brad's comment about this being akin to stand-up comics trying out their material, that's spot on, because like there are a lot of comics that'll be under contract to some of the bigger clubs, but they can't always have those comics at those big clubs, so they'll rent those comics out to smaller clubs so that way they can test out their material that they can go ahead and form, and then bring like their A material over to the clubs like Caroline's where they can go in and kill. That's that's very much akin to what this is all about, and it's also a good way to prepare your material for upcoming book signings. Because that is one thing that you're likely going to be doing. You're going to be likely reading from your book, but also I'll get to the what not to do later on.
Okay.
But yeah, this is definitely something that you can use to prepare your material, make sure that it's in its top form, so that way when you're at your book signing, and hopefully as large a crowd as humanly possible, you're not stumbling through it, and we'll get to that later.
I also wanted to just sort of point out for the logic of it, because I know that people listening who don't want to go stand in front of a microphone in front of a crowd are probably going, this episode's all nice and stuff, but I'm still not going to do that. The point of an open mic is to put it in front of an audience, but at the very least, it's highlighting the fact that your ears are a different organ than
your eyes.
Your eyes are, and your mouth is also a different organ than both your ears and your eyes. So if you are taking but language exists in all of these, so you have to make sure that your language that you're writing down lands properly on each sensor. So if nothing else, read it into a microphone in your house. Read it into something that perhaps does make you a little bit nervous, but is giving you a chance to experience your words in a different way, so that you can see, oh my goodness, I use the same cadence in every sentence that I write, or I have used the word profound 5 times in this paragraph and my eyes didn't notice. Or if even noticing by accident that the really serious thing that you've just written has rhyming words in it and it turned into a nursery rhyme, it changes the tone of what you're doing. You didn't know why it wasn't working before, but it was not something that your eyes and your inner voice heard, because they are not the same organ as your mouth or your ears. So that was my point.
And also, too, sometimes you'll name a character and you think the character's name is really cool on paper until you read it.
I have an excellent example for that. Pazuzu.
There you go.
Oh my gosh, I know someone who is almost that exact nickname.
Oh boy. So to go off of that, that's exactly what I was thinking, is that sometimes open mics tend to inform the way that I write, specifically in the fact that a lot of times I'll have written something and as I'm reading aloud, I will change it without even realizing it to a way that sounds more natural. And I'll look at the page and I'm like, oh, that's not what I had written down, but I like what I said better. So I'll do that a lot of the time. Although it's for me, open mics are terrifying, and incredibly nerve-wracking, but I make myself do them anyway.
It doesn't show. You do a good job.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you do a good job.
Yeah, but I if for no other reason, I like to be able to distinguish. I mean, I guess most people don't read aloud, quote unquote, when they're reading, but I like to know what it sounds like,
Oh, yeah.
and that informs the way that I write.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. You know, that sound that you hear, it's like, I don't know, you'll catch so much out of that. I you know, I enjoy open mics. I don't have a problem with them. I think there are two types of writing. I think what I tend to do is write something and then take it to an open mic and read it. So it's usually going to be a chunk of my novel, a chunk of a novel I'm working on, a chunk of a short story, something along those lines. But I would say half of the open mics at St. Louis Writers Guilds are stuff written for an open mic. It's a short essay. It's something funny. It's humorous. It's not meant to. And I think that can be a wonderful exercise for writers who, you know, if you're claiming you've got writer's block, okay, great. Move on. Write something funny for the open mic. You know, for an open mic, go read it, have fun. You know, you don't have to be serious with it all the time. You can just write something crazy because it struck you that day. Stephen Langhorst will famously sit at the train station and then write a poem or a short little funny thing about some of the trains that have gone by that night, and he'll read it at the end of the open mic. You know.
You composed it within that 7 to 9 2-hour block.
Exactly.
Listening to everyone else read.
And the trains going by and the craziness that's going on. So
we do love a train poem during a train.
Yes.
The most recent one.
And if you have not had the awesomeness of hearing Dwight Bittacofer read Train while trains are going by, you should. Yes, you should. It is out there. But the other thing I was going to mention is when you do get to an open mic, one of the big things to remember is what you're selecting to read. Please remember you have an audience. That audience is there to be entertained. Often people will read just weird excerpts from their book that, you know, are cool or whatever. Sometimes they can be odd little points. You can start from the beginning. That's one place. I tend to like to read some of the exciting parts. Why? Or something that's going to tell something or has a funny scene in it, or something that has a moment that everyone there in the audience can kind of enjoy it, and, you know, having all of a sudden fingers are pointing at me like crazy, and I feel very, you know, no. But yeah, so I do enjoy that.
A lot of dovetails.
Yeah, and you know, open mics can be used for a lot of that. But just think about what you're doing and think about your audience. You want to entertain people.
Can I go first? I'm just really brief. It's exactly what he's just saying. Like picking what portion of your project to use. I'm writing this big fantasy, and I tend to pick the passage I'm going to read by how little setup I need to get people involved in it. So that's just my strategy to that.
That's a good point.
I'm going to go this quick dovetail, then George, then Melanie, I think you had dovetail. Then I'm going to Kath. Oh, I didn't see her. Thank you. Then I'm going to
Should we just go
over here to
clockwise?
Fedora. Then Kathleen, then me back. Okay, so real fast. Audience, very important to remember. I'm glad Brad brought that up, because some audiences, you're okay doing rated R, and other ones you need to be PG-13 or less, depending on how open area, how public the
How open your
mic
open
is.
mic is.
How open is the open?
And I will say also, too, you need to really be aware of your audience. Even if you have something raunchy that you're reading, I will never forgive a certain writer who I will keep their name anonymous here, but wrote a fan fiction, sexual fan fiction, of Gilligan's Island, and that I can never watch that old comedy again.
We'll get to it. We'll get to the piece that killed Loudmouth.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
When we get to the what nots to do, we'll get to the one piece that killed Loudmouth.
Okay.
And this was a
I wanted to
long-running
talk about
Yeah,
that.
we'll tease it.
open mic.
We
but
won't do that
did-
now. We'll get sidetracked.
Yeah.
So I said George, then I said Melanie, Fedora, Kathleen. Okay.
Yeah,
George.
definitely the more self-contained excerpt that you can read, the better. There was one time when I was getting ready to read an excerpt from Excelsior, and I decided I wanted to read a part around chapter 4. That was around the time, before the plot was really kind of kicked into motion. And there was one part that I realized that I could literally take like one little line out of the whole reading and it would eliminate people kind of looking at me weird, and it would keep things going as smoothly as possible. So it wound up being a real benefit for me to read it a little bit beforehand, and then go, and then
Fun time.
and then like realize what part would require a little extra follow up, and then just go from there. So the more self-contained you can get your excerpt in your limited amount of time, the better off you'll be.
But don't speed read through it though.
Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do not
that's what we need to
speed
talk
read.
about
This
as well.
actually dovetails perfectly with George in addition to Brad. But I was just, open mics are a great place to trial run what you're planning to read at your book reading, at your book signings. Because people haven't, if you're reading from your new book, you want people interested, and they want maybe the casual person that's just, casually shopping to actually buy your book. Because of course your hardcover fans will be there, but maybe if you're really lucky in the location, you'll get some random people that just happen to be in the store, and just get people that are buying, because they happen to be there. Yes, I know that doesn't happen too often, but it does happen sometimes. But they
Totally
need to
happens.
understand what's going on.
That's like half my sales.
I sold a handful at Barnes and Noble when I was in Richmond to people that have never heard of me before.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Fedora? Or yes, Fedora.
Do you have
sorry.
something to dovetail?
Dovetail? No.
Oh, well, same.
I want to
Okay.
rain on
Actually,
everybody's parade.
Ooh, yeah.
Actually,
like it.
I
That's
do
what
have
we invite
something
you
that's
along
related
for.
to-
Yeah.
I do have something related then. to
Okay,
the
go
topic
for
at
it.
hand.
And then we'll go to Fedora next for raining. I'm getting out my umbrella. Go for it.
While you're preparing your umbrella, so I've mentioned before that I went to Clarion this summer. What I haven't talked about is the pieces that I submitted to be admitted into the workshop. And I had 2 short stories that I knew I needed to revise. And I wasn't sure really if one of them was even worth revising. I was like, well, it's been a while. I haven't looked at this. I know what I'll do. I'll read it at open mic. And if it seems to work there, then I'll go ahead and revise this piece. And I hadn't looked at it for like 2 years. So I went to open mic and there weren't a lot of people there. So they were like, you can read extra time if you want. And I was like, okay. I didn't plan on it. I had a perfect stopping point where things escalated and the story fell apart. So I was going to read to there or however long until they told me to stop. So I read to there and I stopped and I said, thank you. And someone was like, don't stop there. And I was like, oh, people will do that? So I ended up reading the part of the story that was horribly broken, but everybody was happy to have heard it. And I was like, okay, if that's the response I got, then this is definitely a story I'm using to submit to this workshop. So I revised it and I got into the workshop. And had it not been for that open mic that gave me the hope that this piece could actually do well, I might have submitted something else and not gotten in. So open mic was a real confidence booster for me as far as the stories that I submitted there, because when people responded well, I knew, okay, this is something that might do well and that might get me into this workshop. So it was very helpful. I credit open mic with so much as far as getting in that summer.
And the thunder rolls.
It was a dark and
I
stormy
think
night.
that Brad had the only decent point that really makes sense to a writer.
Ouch!
And I hardly ever say that.
Ouch!
That was mean.
Don't sugarcoat it, Sundance.
That's okay.
Seriously.
Why did I?
That's okay.
And that was shameless self-promotion.
Oh my
Absolutely
goodness.
shameless self-promotion. As you're out there in the public and hoping to introduce your characters, your vision, whatever, to some leg of the public. Anything else is probably better done some other way. Now, if you want to be a stand-up comic, it's great to try your material out there. And if you want to be an actor, hey, go to acting school, find out how to do it. If your desire is to read audiobooks, hey, go to school and find out how to do that. Go to broadcast school. But as for a writer, think what you're trying to do, what your reason for being is. Is it to go out and talk in public and give some trivial bit of humor or whatever else that you don't really write, and you're only doing it to pander to the public and promote yourself, as I said? What really legitimate reason do you have that you couldn't better serve some other way? For example, let's say that you do want to read out loud. Well, take the advice of our lovely Jen over here who said to record it and listen to it. Or go to your critique group, read it out loud. And they will give you good feedback and tell you, from a writer's point of view, what's working and what's not working. So there are lots better ways. And I have one final suggestion. If you do want to go and have your skin blistered at a poetry slam or an open mic, please take along your own personal posse that will root for you.
Oh my gosh, you make it sound like a horror show. That has not been my experience at all.
Have you
Please
ever
don't
been
be.
to a poetry slam? Oh, they all sound
Poetry slams
so
are not my
angry.
thing.
Yeah.
But I have a friend that would do very well at a poetry slam, and she won a poetry slam. So I mean, to each her own. But something else that I don't think we've really talked about as far as open mics that is another benefit is not being alone. It's writing community. Something that I think write-ins are great at is building writing community. Something open mics are great at, introducing you to other writers in your area.
That's the best way, do you think?
Well,
It's
a
one
way.
way,
It's
and
a
some
way.
people don't have
I'm
where
not
to
sure
start.
it is.
and I'll be honest,
Sure.
like, I would not have heard of Linda O'Connell had I not heard her read at open mic. I would not be in love with Rebecca Wood's political poetry had I not heard her read it at open mic. Like, I read science fiction and fantasy, and at open mic I am exposed to other types of writing that I like just as much, but don't go hunting for. So, you know, I think it's really important for open mic. Like, Jen reaches a lot of people with her illustrations, but she also has a lot of people who are looking forward to Threadcaster because she's read it at open mic. And I think that's wonderful. When my story comes out in March, I'm going to read the beginning of it at open mic and tell people where to find it. Is that promotion? Yes. But will they be familiar with me already? Yes. And I think it's important to, you know, get to know your community a little bit.
And finding critique partners is very hard for some people, and people that are brave enough to go to open mic and are looking for people and want that feedback are a good way to find them other than the internet, because those are the two ways I know about.
There's a guy I want to come back to open mic so I can see if he'll be a critique partner for me, because he writes necromancers and witches, and I was like, me too!
I remember that guy. He was great.
He was
See?
great.
And this is another person that we remember from open mic whose writing we liked. I think that's really important.
Go ahead, Jen. I want to say something. Go ahead.
I also wanted like the black and white statement that the only reason to go is shameless self-promotion. That's not the reason I go at all.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that they're interested in Threadcaster, but I'm going for me. And I didn't plan to even have a reading at my launch party in March because I figured I'd be busy talking and selling, hopefully, with individual people. Like, promotion is one thing, but that's not the point of going to open mic, as far as I'm concerned. Because we don't sell books there. Like, we're not selling your book at open mic. It's there to celebrate the written word and to read your own work and share it with people. And I know, I find it a joyful experience, and apparently not everyone
Well, I'm
feels that
glad
way,
you
and
do
that's
that.
fine. So that's just, you know, my 2 cents to that, and why I put my hand over my heart and withdrew when you said that.
What I'm going to say really quick, I just want to put out there another practical aspect for a writer to open mics. Yes, I can sit at home and read into the microphone. And I can listen to my books and listen to my stories and see where my pacing's off or where I'm having to use breath control and so forth to really get out that read. But it's a whole different ballpark when you are having to read in front of a whole bunch of people.
No, it's a subconscious thing. You're
It's
like, I'm
very
entertaining
subconscious.
people now.
But
Well,
that's
that's
that's not what you do as a writer.
Well,
Yes, it is,
24/7.
But yet, actually, I'm going to disagree with you.
Well, here's
I've gone to book signings where, like for your own Fedora, for example, you're sitting there and you're talking to people, you sign our books, and yay. And there are other ones where the bookstore or the author or their audience is expecting them to read, and they take out their book. A good example of a well-done version, Elaine Viets does this all the time. Where she's got a place where she's signing her book at Barnes & Noble, then she'll go back into Barnes & Noble itself to a table where they've got all of her books lined up, and she sits there and reads a little bit from her book, and she does a great reading. I've seen other ones, I just picked up a book, this is not mine. Oh, funny, actually turns the word tell stories. So, and they're like this in front of the audience. Tell stories. We call this the picture this principle. We realize that
And you're
this
suggesting
could.
that they should do this?
No,
Yes,
that's what I'm
because they
saying.
need to
No, what I'm
practice.
saying is
But some
that
will
because they
never
don't
get
have
any
No,
better
he's
by
saying
doing
practice
that.
for your reading at an open mic.
that's what I'm talking about. The open
Practice
mic.
is good.
The open mic gives you a free audience that usually is not going to jump all over you and critique how you talk. And we've had that happen, but usually that's the case. And it's a good chance for you to step out of your comfort zone and confront the inhibitions you may have with reading aloud in front of an audience, be that audience of 3 people or 30. Go ahead.
So, at Clarion, Mysterious Galaxy Books is this great sci-fi fantasy bookstore in San Diego. And they would have author events where they would bring in an author, the author would read from their work, and then they would sign copies of their books that were being sold at the bookstore. And one of my teachers, Andy Duncan, gave a superb reading. He had everybody in stitches. He was reading from Walcalla Springs, novella he wrote with someone else, Ellen Clage, I think, Clages. Anyway, it was hilarious. I still remember the part that he read because I was laughing so hard. And one of the things he had us do in class was he said, okay, we're going to practice because someday you guys are going to be reading your work in public at book signings. So we're going to have a reading tonight. You're going to choose something to read. You're going to remember that you want to entertain your audience and make them want to hear more from you. And he had all of us stand up in the front of the room and read our work. They were short pieces. They were meant to entertain. But after that, we all discussed what had worked well and what had not worked well. And he said it was an important part of your writing career to be able to read to entertain a group. So I think open mic is also very helpful in that aspect because I used to talk too fast.
Mark Twain, Dickens,
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing, Dave. You started to touch on this, but you missed almost the most important part of an open mic.
Go for it.
For a reader, when you're reading, and if you are standing in front of people, one of the greatest things you're going to get out of it is the emotion of the people, the reactions that you're getting.
True.
Are you reading something that's supposed to be funny? Did anyone crack a smile in the room? If you did, you succeeded. If they laughed, awesome. Give yourself a big old high five or something because that's great to know. Was it dramatic? Were the people sitting on the edge of their seats, did they want to hear more? They obviously wanted to hear more of your story there. So it's exciting. Does it build people? And if you have that, if you can see, because there's a thing in every open mic with prose. Doesn't happen with poetry that often. Poetry is too short. Mm-hmm. But with prose, you reach that 3-4 minute mark, and people have either decided that they are ready to kill you so that they can get up there and start reading their stuff,
Right.
or they're in for the long haul, and you might be able to go the full length, and they'll catch and they'll be intrigued the entire time. Mm-hmm. But so often with bad reading or with a bad story or something that's not intriguing, something doesn't compel everyone in that room. You get the talking, you get the drifting, you get the people on their phones, you get all that kind of stuff. And if you're that person up there and everyone in there is not paying attention to a word you're saying, there's something wrong with your writing. And that's something that I think
There's something wrong with your speaking.
Could be.
Could be.
These are things you can work on and decide from there. But something I've noticed about every open mic is there's a weird moment at about the 3-minute mark where you either have them or you've completely lost them.
Now, that's an interesting statement. I'm coming over here to George next. But usually, I know this from doing audio dramas, 100 words a minute is your average, 100 to 150 words a minute. But we'll use an easy number, 100. So if a page is 250 words, you've got 100 words a minute. If you've got 3 minutes to make sure you grab your audience, that's really a very short amount of time.
This is going to be basically one of those episodes where I just respond to Brad by saying yeah, what he said.
Feeling a little Brad love. No.
The main thing that I really want to just kind of throw out there to writers and everything is that this is not like watching a movie where you have a whole bunch of people and everything watching one specific thing. When you are writing mainly like a novel, or whatever, like whatever you are reading, that is a relationship between the writer and the reader, and that's it. With an open mic and being able to read out loud and everything, that is your only real shot to get some sort of instant gratification to see if what it is that you are working on is working. So that goes right back to what Brad was saying. If people aren't laughing, it's something that John Cleese said, years ago. If people aren't laughing, it isn't funny. If people aren't gasping, then it's not a big shock. They could be several steps ahead of you for all you know. But something like this allows you to get that sort of feeling right then and there. So you can basically just kind of put a highlighter around it and just say okay, this is what I need to go back and work on.
Do you want to dovetail?
Nope.
Me neither.
Go ahead.
Ladies first.
Forge new territory.
So, we're calling this about open mics, but also about read-alouds.
Right.
And I would like to talk a bit about read-alouds.
Excellent.
If we're not going to go into what not to expect from open mic.
I
if you
think
want to do the knots?
I think we should do the knots very quickly if we can.
Okay, that's what I was actually going to do is the knots.
And I'm going to say something. Now, I know I jumped in and I was saying to Fedora, professional, friendly here, but saying I kind of disagreed with you. I'm going to say something which might surprise the audience real fast. I hate open mics.
Doesn't surprise me.
Didn't surprise anyone.
Yeah, I really don't like them because it pushes. While it's pushing my writing, yay, it's making me write to the open mic rather than what I'm trying to do. And there's also other reasons I don't like it, like feeling like I'm in a live version of Facebook. But certain cases.
Can
But
we
that's
get
just
like
me.
buttons?
Now, I wish
That'd
we
be
could.
awesome. Little like signs. I like that.
Yeah.
Smiley
That's
face.
my idea.
Audience reaction.
Sad face.
But
Then a
just
ha-ha face.
Yeah.
But even though I say that, what I said before still is relevant. Open mics are a great source for you to be able to learn how to talk aloud, how to read aloud, how to pace yourself, how to time yourself. And with that, Brad, what should we never do?
Yes. So my favorite of the don'ts. This comes from years of experience, having seen a lot of these things. The biggest one I'm going to tell you is that you are speaking to an audience, and remember that. So I said I would tease out earlier the very last thing ever said at Loudmouth, which was St. Louis Writers Guild's adult open mic.
It was the
So you
PG-13 and up.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
R-rated. You could throw in the sex and you could throw in the bad words and the violence if you wanted to and all that kind of fun stuff, and everyone did. I mean, that thing ran for years. People loved it. There was off-color poetry.
Mention
and-
it was in a bar.
Yes, it was in a bar.
It was in a bar, yes.
So everyone gather up and get drunk and have some fun and listen to all the great stuff.
It wasn't quite that much in a bar.
Okay, maybe not drunk. That's probably a good thing. But everyone ate dinner and had
Depending on
fun
who
and
it
enjoyed
was.
themselves. But the point is that it was a lot of fun, and you could read whatever you wanted. You could curse like a sailor in it. And I will admit that there, over the years, there were guys. They were always guys. Who felt the need to push it as far as they could. They wanted to be shocking for shocking's sake. They wanted to disgust everyone in the room. They were trying to get a rise out of everyone there, and they were there to troll, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was an ancient form of trolling. No, but yeah. The point is that we had a guy at the very last one who showed up. It was his first time at the open mic. And basically, he read something that was so vile about bugs in ladies that,
Places.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bugs in lady places.
Oh God.
Yeah.
And I will go no further than that, don't worry. But it was vulgar, it was sexist, it was crude, it was disgusting, it was vile in every way, shape, or form. It was overly detailed, and I think worst of all, it was horribly written.
The rest is forgiven.
It was really horrifically bad, and it offended everyone there. And, this guy, he'd done it on purpose. He was definitely coming back to the next one. He purposely had done it. He ran around the room making sure he'd kind of ticked off everyone there. And at that point, we had half the people who were attending literally come to us and say, that was so vile that I now understand that this may not work as a format going forward. We will not be back.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Because as much as I would like to be able to read funny stuff and vulgar stuff and that just had a slight bit of vulgarity to it, the fact that somebody had pushed it that far meant that could happen again and they would never be back to being that kind of experience, ever.
Mm-hmm.
And with just like 3 people now, it was... because it was more than half the room was disgusted and left, and
Did they all walk out? I mean, literally.
some of them walked out
Some
right
did.
right then. Others came up to us when we were actually there, and just right there said, "Listen, this is disgusting and vile, and I'll never be back." And we had the rule that if it got bad, we'd stop them, and we ended up stopping him because it was just so bad. I never heard the end of it. I don't think I need to.
I don't know what to.
But
I blacked the whole thing out.
the whole point of this is that, this was one guy who went out to shock people, did it intentionally, wrote something so vile that no magazine would have ever published it. He could have self-pubbed the short story maybe or something like that. I doubt any contest would have taken it because it was not good at all. But it was an experience, not a pleasant one, but it was one. And from that, that killed the loudmouth, and now the open mic, you can probably swear a little bit if you wanted to.
A little bit.
PG-13
PG-13 on ours. Yeah.
Hey, it's no longer family friendly. That dropped 3 years ago.
That's okay. PG-13.
It's just know that you're talking to an audience of human beings.
Right. Dovetail?
No, I'm very glad. Well, it's another don't. But,
Yeah,
go for it.
I'm glad to say that this is not one of those situations where I'll be saying, yeah, what he said. I'm so thankful that I wasn't there to hear that. The main thing that really kind of, it's a pet peeve for me as a reader of people reading from their own material out loud, is that they feel the need to read from their own finished book. Because when you do that, you're putting yourself at the risk of losing your place very easily. What I would suggest is, I was at a big read aloud function over at the library in Del Mar, and I noticed that everyone who was there was reading from their own book, and at least once each person lost their place. I went up there, and what I did was I used 8.5 by 11 sheets with all my text double spaced in large font. And you do that, and you're not going to lose your place, or at least it severely decreases the risk of losing your place. Remember, you are there to entertain. They don't want to hear the whatever.
Where was I? Let me reread that paragraph.
They don't want to hear you reading line 1 and then start reading line 3 and then realize you completely forgot line 2. So you got to keep that in mind.
Go ahead, Dovetail.
That's something that I did when I was reading at Clarion, and that's something that I do when I'm reading at open mics with my laptop. I'll get a new file, put just the section I'm going to read in that file, put it at 200%, and double space it, and then I'll read that way, and I don't lose my place. I know where I am, and I can see the words clearly. So
see, I'm horrible. I read it in teeny tiny text, flowing on my phone. So it's
You can also highlight parts that you want to have in a different voice, for example. You can mark your script so that you do the best possible job of reading.
Agreed.
So I certainly would recommend that if you're going to be so stupid as to do it.
One other don't real fast, and then unless anyone else has one, I'm going to toss it over to Kathleen. Do not assume that the time starts when you start your story.
No.
The time usually starts when you open your mouth to speak. Meaning, and we've had this happen, I'm going to leave names alone. When you've got 5 minutes for your poetry or 7 minutes for your prose at the open mic,
9
you
minutes.
do not spend 5 minutes talking about how great you are, and then wonder what happened to your time. And also, along with those, don't how should I say this? Don't
running the open mic.
No, don't. Well, not only don't harass the people running the open mic, but don't talk behind the back of the people running those open mics. This is you. If you are a writer, published or unpublished, and you are wanting to be a professional, be professional.
Yeah, it's a teeny tiny industry, and we all talk gossip.
Yes, unfortunately. So, with that said, I'm going to turn this over now to Kathleen, unless anybody else has a
Oh,
note.
yeah, I actually did. So,
Okay.
real quick, a couple of things. So, these have all been really great things. Your thing on time, that's really crucial. Read it ahead of time, and then probably take a page out, because you're probably either going to read it really slowly or really fast or something crazy like that. But, just... And that'll give
And
you that
have to
lead
give a
time.
little introduction too, or people won't know what.
Yes,
where
and
to
that was the other thing I was
start.
going to go to. A little introduction.
Yes.
You want to come up there, you want to say who you are, you want to say what your book is, you want to say a little bit about what's about to happen, and then you want to get in there. Because nobody wants to spend 3 minutes hearing about, what you are doing. The other thing is, speak clearly, emote, don't be monotone, do voices. We talked about that. I love that kind of stuff. But more importantly, you want to inject some energy into that text. There's nothing worse than 7 minutes of drolling, boring, I can't listen anymore, and I have no idea what's going on because I stopped paying attention 3 minutes ago. That's not good. That's not what you want. So put some energy into your vocals, and people will be there. They'll be right on the edge with you. So.
One don't that I just kind of want to toss in there: don't go unprepared. For my own little personal horror story, like I went and I knew in my head what I wanted to read, and I just kind of whipped out my laptop and went to the page or whatever, and I didn't realize that I had some page breaks in there that changed point of view, and I didn't really realize, and I didn't consider how I was going to make that distinction, like audibly. I didn't think about it. So I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, I don't know if they actually got that this is a different person speaking, and I just hadn't thought about it. And I'm like, if I had been smart about it, I could have planned ahead and made some sort of distinction to where I wouldn't have to worry about it. So even if you're, even if it's like just, a last minute thing, take a minute to look over what you're doing and be prepared for any and all eventualities.
Yes.
Yeah, I think lastly, don't, what was it? Jeez, I just said on the tip of my tongue. Don't, when you get up there, don't stop. So, don't stop and tell people, oh, I screwed up. If you flub lines, you're going to. Just keep going. Just keep reading. Move on. You've only got 7 minutes. You've only got 5 minutes. You've only got a short period of time. And nobody cares that you screwed up. You care because you're embarrassed. You're standing up in front of all these people and all of a sudden you're flubbing every last word. It's like, that's not good and you're going to be bad, but here's the thing. It's like anything else. Nobody cares that you stumbled. Everybody just wants to see you get back up and keep going.
Right.
And if you do that, then you don't have anything to worry about. Just keep reading. People want to hear the next thing you're going to say. Don't just go, oh, wait, I screwed it. Can I start over? Can I start over? Can I know I've been reading for the last minute or so, but I just screwed that up. Can I just start over? So then don't, just keep going.
Okay, let's talk about read alouds.
All right. So, one moment. So, read aloud. They're wonderful. And basically, it is the same sort of thing that you do with open mic. You read for an audience. But it is a much smaller audience. It is an audience where you know everyone involved, because with read alouds, you're doing them in a private setting. So, read alouds are something that I started doing after I left college and couldn't read stories with my friends anymore out loud. And I did it on the computer via FaceTime or Skype. And I would Skype with a friend of mine, MJ King, who's another writer. And we would read our stories that we were working on or that we had finished to one another. And it was for validation to see what worked. I apparently have an expressive face when I'm hearing stories, so you can definitely tell what I'm thinking and whether I'm delighted or whether I want to throttle someone. So it was very helpful for her to know what was working in what way in her story. And for me, it's helpful that, like, if she likes something, she'll tell me. If I want critique, she can give that to me. And I invited Chanel to one of our read alouds because I had a story that I wanted to know if it was done or not, because I didn't want to look at it anymore. And I was like, the only way I'm going to get anything done on this story to get it sent in on time is if I read it out loud to someone. So I FaceTimed Mel and I had Chanel and I was like, okay guys, we were meeting so I can read this story, and then you guys are going to read stuff, and it's going to be great. And it was great.
It was great. It was.
So, when I read the story out loud, I caught a few typos, so I fixed those, and then I sent the story off, because it was actually done, and they were both happy with the results. So I was like, okay, we're all good, that's done. Next, I want to hear a story. So, it's a lot of fun doing read aloud just with your friends. It's not as, Threatening, yes.
And I approve entirely of that.
And you had also mentioned, Fedora, reading aloud for critique, and that's something I have also started doing with read alouds. My friend Mel, MJ King, had a short story she wanted to submit somewhere, and she was like, there's not really time to send it to you to get full comments, so I'm going to read it to you, and you can give me critique on this story. So I got my little notebook, and I got my pen, and I sat down for a good story. And then I gave her the critiques that I had thought of as they came to me while she read. And she sent off the story that day, and it was great.
Cool.
And I did the same thing with something for her. She gave me critiques. I sent it off that day. So read aloud is great. You just have fun, or you can get critiques on your story in a safe environment where someone is not coming up to you when he shouldn't to be like, let me just give you some critiques. Is that cool?
No.
Unless there's a word agent behind your name.
Oh my goodness.
Uh,
But yeah, so if read alouds are too daunting, or if you live out in the country or don't have a lot of writers locally, like my friend MJ King, you can read to other people that you know in your community on the computer. It's great.
there are a lot of good software programs to be able to basically call up other people on your computer.
Let's also not forget reading to dogs and reading to children and reading to children in hospitals.
And to be honest, if you want a good way to practice, I'm glad you said that. If you want a good way to practice, especially doing character voices while you're reading and knowing, it doesn't matter don't read your own work. I'm not going to recommend that. And go to a school. Volunteer to read to the kids.
But don't tell them you write erotica, because
Yeah,
they will not.
please. Don't even do that.
Personal experience, don't tell them that.
That's a story for off mic.
Tune in for Ragtag After Dark.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you write? Oh.
Yeah, that's what I say. Don't read your own work in front of them unless you're writing for kids. You've got permission and all that. But it's a good chance that the teacher could use a quick break while you read a story to the kids, if it's allowed in the school district that you are in.
And you have no criminal records.
Yes.
Dovetailing to that,
Yes, I heard.
I remember reading I was a teacher's aide at an Orthodox Jewish school. I'm not Jewish, but I was handed a book to read, and I was just warned because there was something coming up, because this was the boxcar children, and there was a reference to not working on the Sabbath, and these were Christian children, not Jewish children. So she said, you probably won't get to that part, but, just don't mention anything about it if it comes up. So, because she wasn't the rabbi, there were no women rabbis because it was an Orthodox Jewish school. But anyway, she was away from the room longer than she expected, so I did get to that part. And it was amazing how easy it was just to say, tomorrow instead of Sunday.
Uh-huh.
And it bypassed the whole issue, and nobody picked up on it. And you know what? When I was a kid reading Boxcar Children, I didn't pick up on it either. So...
Something else that I found about myself as a writer is that having people who are excited for a story makes me more inclined to work on it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So there's a novella.
Novel or novella?
Whatever makes you feel
I'm calling
better.
it a novella because novels are scary. So there's a novella that I'm writing that I read part of to Chanel, and I've written more of it. And I would read aloud what was new to her, and she would be so happy about it. I was like, okay, have to write more to see that look on her face again. So read alouds don't necessarily have to be to critique or to find out if a piece is ready for something. It can just be to get you writing more. Needing to have something to read out loud to a friend at a regular interval of time can get you writing in a way that's fun.
Speaking of which, I want to hear more about that novella. I'm just saying.
And there you go. And with that, let's end today's session. So have a great week writing. Tune in next week for yet another. I can't even talk anymore. Interesting topic in the writing industry. Thank you for listening. And I'm looking for.
So it was a Christian school.
No, it was an
that I
Orthodox
went-
Jewish
No, no,
school.
no. It was a Christian school that I went to.
Oh gosh.
And
Queen.
an elementary school, and they were like, "What do you write? You're published. This is great. We're so excited." I was like, it's for adult audiences, gay adult audiences."
Thank you for
GatewayCon? What is GatewayCon? The Gateway to Publishing Conference and Convention, brought to you by St. Louis Writers Guild, is a new, unique experience for writers looking for their work to be either traditionally published, independently published, self-published, or to further their writing career. Coming in June 2017, GatewayCon will provide opportunities for writers to pitch their work to agents, hone their craft regardless if it is genre fiction or nonfiction, and obtain expert critiques. Get to meet vendors and experts who can help your writing get attention. And all writers get their work in front of their audience. Writers will get to network with agents, publishers, and others in your genre. Gateway to Publishing Conference and Convention will be in St. Louis, June 16th through the 18th, 2017. For more information, visit www.stlwritersguild.org or look for GatewayCon on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. GatewayCon, opening the gateway for writers to reach their readers. Did you know that Right Pack Radio has an international audience? How would you like to reach that audience in regards to your books, your book services, your author services, or more? Go to www.windingtrailsmedia.com and look under advertising for more information. If you don't have a script, that's not a problem. We will be happy to work with you. Once again, go to www.windingtrailsmedia.com for more information. The new theme songs for Right Pack Radio were written and performed by Meredith Tate. All copyrights remain with her.